On today's show, the Jonathan Kuminga rumors just will not die. Who's telling the truth? Who's speculating more than actually reporting? Who do we believe? Let's talk about it all next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Benjamin Garcia, host of the Ben Garcia Show mornings on YouTube and a credentialed Suns media member. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Thursday night, Friday morning. I know you guys in the YouTube comments section love to go after me for my specific days. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button to do it. Thousands, dare I say millions of Suns fans have done already. Become an everyday and get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me today, staff writer at Bright Side of the Sun and Suns Digest host, Bruce Veliz. Bruce, are you a first timer on Locked On Suns? Are you a rook? Are you making your debut today? What's up, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, Ben. Yes, I'm a longtime viewer now, someone who's been lucky enough to be on the show. So I'm very gracious to have this opportunity and can't wait to break down the discussions that we have from all the news coming out on the Suns today.
All I know is that you will be judged very harshly. The comment section is ruthless. Lucky you and John on Wednesday. It's July, right? It's the time of the year, it's late July, early August in a couple of days here, where we're talking about there being not a lot going on. That's not the case for the Phoenix Suns. But like on Wednesday, talked a little bit of speculation with Josh Giddey, talking about how he just like him better than Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know why the Suns aren't doing that. But you guys, Jonathan Kuminga rumors last Sunday, Jonathan Kuminga rumors today. You guys don't even have to work for when you guys are on the show. We're just coming up with it on the fly. Appreciate you taking time, man. Before we get into the Jonathan Kuminga rumors, I'm kind of taking an assessment from each, staff writer from a certain organization or people on Twitter. Before we dive into the rumors that are hot and heavy on Jonathan Kuminga to potentially the Phoenix Suns, break it down for me, man. You don't have to tell me if you want it to happen. If you don't want it to happen, you can if you want to. However, what do you think of Kuminga's fit in Phoenix? Just people know how I feel. It feels like it's a heat check grab, meaning the Suns have hit a lot of three-pointers in a row with making chicken salad out of chicken bleep this offseason and constructing a pretty good roster. It feels like they need to know when to say no, unless, of course, we'll get into the reports. He might be had for cheaper than we thought, but it just doesn't feel like it's a great fit for the Suns. Where are you at, man?
Yeah, I think the fan base is truly kind of 50-50 on this. And I think kind of in my assessment of it as well, I ultimately am as well. When looking at Jonathan Kuminga, I think the fit personally isn't the best, like you really highlighted. He's going to be coming into this team already into a little bit of a crowded wing room with young guys like Rasheer Fleming, who's looking to develop, potentially Oso Godaro, Ryan Dunn, Dylan Brooks, the potential of running those double bigs, and that could hinder some of his development time. But also, if he is going to be coming in and the Suns are going to be running this two playmaking guard, offensive style with Jalen Green and Devin Booker, what does that mean for Jonathan Kuminga on the ball? I know a lot of the concerns with him and Jimmy Butler in Golden State with the fit is that they play very similarly, where both guys kind of need the ball in their hands to kind of run through that offense. And he hasn't been able to flourish over in Golden State because of that and really been to blossom within Steve Kerr. And I don't know if necessarily he's going to be able to do that same thing because a lot of people have looked at, especially you as well, who've discussed this, his shooting percentages aren't that great the past couple of seasons. And that's going to be something where if he is playing off the ball or is playing in a little bit of a role like that, where Devin Booker and Jalen Green, or who's the so-called point guard of this roster, is going to be taking those commands and be initiating this offense, Jonathan Kuminga might not have as much control in that. So ultimately, I don't necessarily know if the fit is the best thing, but it all depends for me for the price tag, because I think if the Suns are able to get Jonathan Kuminga for the right price tag, then it ultimately could benefit them better than the fit, as their long-term plans that they could use Kuminga's contract down the line could also give them a better spot at outlook.
It's a good transition to what we want to talk about. It was initially this morning, Shams Charania put out the tweet, Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors are at ends when it comes to a deal. Golden State made a renewed push to retain Jonathan Kuminga per Shams Charania, but the restricted free agent continues to decline a 2-year, $45 million offer to the Warriors, insistent on a team option and waiving a built-in no-trade clause, sources tell ESPN. So basically saying the Warriors aren't getting, it feels like to me, let me tell you what this thinks to me, is it feels like the Warriors aren't getting the offers, clearly, that they want for Jonathan Kuminga. And just so we're clear, the Warriors' asking price is a little insane. However, you ask for the moon and the stars, and you settle on Stardust is where it kind of lands for me. But when I see them saying, listen, they're trying to extend a hand out to Jonathan Kuminga, we want you on a 2-year, $45 million deal. It feels a little bit like a slap in the face. If you're Jonathan Kuminga, this is someone who at minimum's got $22.50. It seems like from the reporting that we've seen a year from both the Kings and the Suns. And they're asking him to take basically half that guaranteed money over 2 years. How much if let me just say this. We don't have to go into if he's going to be a Phoenix Sun, but is he going to be a Golden State Warrior? Do you think there's a world where they can put the toothpaste back in the tube with how kind of toxic it's been with the Jonathan Kuminga front? I haven't even seen this with Josh Giddey. Where are you at in that? How much leverage do the Warriors really have in all this?
So I think the Warriors have the most leverage, and I think that he will most likely be back just for the sheer factor that he is willing to go back on that qualifying offer that they already offered him to have that opportunity to become an unrestricted free agent next year and kind of bank on himself. Now, personally, I think kind of similar to the Kevin Durant situation last offseason when they tried to get rid of him, they might be seeing some of that same resemblance with Jonathan Kuminga. So maybe kind of getting out of it ahead so you kind of can get the best value possible for him, even if it's not that shining star that they thought they could have gotten, because you mentioned he was in packages last summer with Podziemski for guys like Lauri Markkanen, and I think they feel like they can get a star level type player like that with other assets for a guy in Jonathan Kuminga. And I think that's why they've been so reluctant to kind of get rid of him in that kind of space. But I do think the Warriors would rather have Jonathan Kuminga back on that contract. You mentioned that 2-year, $45 million deal. The reporting from Shams Charania was a little bit weird because he wrote in that article that the Suns were offering $70 million more. And that might make you think oh, what is this bogus Suns front office doing again? Why are they writing the Suns wrong? But that contract was basically a 1-year, $22 million deal, the second year being a team option, in which Jonathan Kuminga would either get traded to that season next year at the deadline and sign the extension with that team the next offseason, or would the team would decline that option and he would get that opportunity. So I think that wording was a little bit weird there as well.
It's also just basic math. When I saw that as well in the report where it was Suns are offering, I think it was exactly $60 million more than the Golden State Warriors in any deal. It's guys, yeah, of course it's going to be that much. Did you see how much the Warriors were offering him? And then eventually it came out, well, the Suns got a deal on the table for 4 years, $90 million, if I'm doing my math correctly, $22.5 million average annual value. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but that is exactly what you would do for Kuminga. That changes everything. Before we get into the other reporting, I'm not exactly sure what Jonathan Kuminga's value is. We'll get to Brett Siegel's reporting and we'll get to Mark Spears' reporting on the other side of the break, but what exactly are the Warriors expecting to get back for Kuminga? I understand there are Suns fans out there. I read a tweet today and I can't remember who I saw it from, but it was basically saying Suns fans must hate scores. And I was like, what? Jonathan Kuminga is an inefficient scorer. The reason why there's a clear line about if you want Jonathan Kuminga on the Suns is there's a clear risk reward. There's a massive risk in giving Jonathan Kuminga a 4 years, $120 million deal, 4 years, $100 million deal. There is some risk there. Even the $90 million, it's less of a risk. It's a tradable contract, but there's still risk in it. The guy has not shown the ability to shoot the ball efficiently from the field. He hasn't been someone who has been known as a defensive prowess guy. He gets to the rim pretty well. He does not necessarily finishes around the rim at like an elite level. And you see the raw talent, and you can say he was probably misused in Golden State. But that's not an obvious thing. So when I see some of the reporting today of what the Suns could potentially give up, or the things that we've talked about, Oso and Grayson Allen, it's like, I don't know how much more you're going to get. They think they're going to get for Kuminga because of the fact that you also have to pay him really quickly. And then we'll go to break here. What do you think his value is?
So it's really tough with all the RFAs, like you mentioned. They all have like a weird estimated value because they want the most. And I kind of view the contract of the $30 million that they're seeking kind of like a superstar trying to chase that $50 million contract a couple of seasons ago, where teams are very weary on giving that kind of unproven player that kind of $30 million deal, similar to that Jalen Green contract that some Suns fans were weary on kind of getting. I would say Kuminga's value for me is around that $20 to $25 million range. 22 was where I said was kind of my max. I felt very comfortable with that. But I think his value across the league is probably someone that has some untapped potential to be that third star, maybe second star. But that's where I kind of see him.
You see Kuminga. I mean, I want to go to break here, and I will in a second. But you see Kuminga with the potential of being a third star on a championship winning team?
I think there's the possibility of him rising.
I'm not saying, and just so we're clear, I'm not saying that you're saying that that's what he's going to become. You're saying you see the potential of that. Because honestly, man, I see Kuminga at his best as a 4, but I'll let you continue with what you're saying. Sorry.
So I'll preface this too. I'm always very high on potential as well with guys. I'm kind of give the guy 2 or 3 opportunities to see where he pans out before I really fully make an estimation. With the seeing the ability of the OTE, G League, Ignite guys, the kind of variance of them has been, high and low, with looking at guys like Amon Thompson and Asor Thompson, and then looking at Buzelis and Ron Holland. It can really go either way. So with Kuminga, he kind of falls into that pool. But I just going off the untapped potential, I could still see that, because I think, like you mentioned, the Warriors haven't given him that best opportunity yet. And I think if he found an opportunity where he could maybe thrive, he could become a little bit more of an efficient player for them.
Interesting. There's more reporting. There's more reporting on that being one Jonathan Kuminga. Brett Siegel came out, and we actually got an offer that the Suns have allegedly put on the table, and we'll talk about the conflicting reporting and who do we believe, and if the offer on the table is what is actually on the table, if it would change our opinions on going after Kuminga. So let's talk about that next. First, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. As I come down here and I look for that patented Game Time lower third, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you could save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. And I got to tell you, I am not much of a concert guy. I'm just not a big environment, or I'm not big on the environment of being around a bunch of people. However, I have been to a couple of concerts, and one particularly really stands out to me. I used Game Time to purchase my tickets about a year ago to go see Blink-182 in concert. It was a event that I told my wife, we'll see what happens as the show gets closer. I'm not sure if we're going to go yet. Boom, about an hour and a half, 2 hours to concert time. Tickets dropped tremendously. Me and my wife went. We had a great time. We were in the lower bowl, and we saw my favorite band for like half of face value. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, keeping the show moving. Let's start to move on to a little bit more of the reporting that we saw from today. One of it came from Mark J. Spears. Now, to be fair, I didn't see a tweet on this, but it was reported everywhere, was speculated everywhere, so it's likely he mentioned it on ESPN, but it's definitely something that came from him. He has mentioned the Phoenix Suns trade offer for Jonathan Kuminga is Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, and 4 second-round picks. Now, for the guy in the comment section telling me and Bruce that we don't watch the Suns and we have no idea what's going on, we're very clear that the Suns don't have 4 second-round picks. However, the reason why I didn't go after it, and I wasn't like going after Mark Spears for, bad reporting or whatever, because like behind the scenes, maybe it means they're trading Grayson Allen. And that's like one of the ways that they're staying out from under the apron. Maybe they have a deal, a corresponding deal, where they get Grayson Allen, they get 2 or 3 second-round picks, probably 2, maybe 3, and they're using those to get, or I guess it would have to be 3, using those in a deal to bring Jonathan Kuminga back. So we understand they can't do it yet, but it's not like the Suns' hands are tied and they can't make that happen for Grayson Allen, who does have some value on a contract that people don't love. I think it's $16.1 million a year that Grayson Allen's going to be making for being more or less a shooter and an okay defender. Does this change your mind? I know we kind of teased it in the first segment, but if you can get, like, I did a whole show on Wednesday, Bruce, that was like, I just don't get it. I don't understand going after Jonathan Kuminga. It doesn't fit a lot of the things that you're trying to do. But I was working off of the idea that it could be a $30 million a year contract, and it's Grayson Allen and it's also Iguodala. You go from it's a risky move to you have to do this deal if any framework about this is correct. Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, 4 second-round picks because they went and go get extra ones in a corresponding move for Grayson Allen. Like, don't you agree, man? At that point, the risk is worth the reward. The fact that he doesn't do everything that you're asking him to do, it's not like it's a Bradley Beal deal where you can't trade him. $22.5 million a year. It's not something that it's going to be hard to move off of. Your reaction to Mark Spears on there?
Yeah, I would 100% do this deal in a heartbeat if I'm the Phoenix Suns here. The Royce O'Neal, like we kind of mentioned and talked about, and you guys have mentioned on your show when Brendan was here, doesn't really have much of a role here in Phoenix, unfortunately. Now with Ryan Dunn and Dylan Brooks potentially playing that small forward and power forward position, there's the possibility of running the double big out there. There's Nigel Hayes-Davis. There's Rasheer Fleming. To me, it doesn't really make sense for Royce O'Neal. And if he wants to get his most opportunity out there, I think he's going to have to go to a different spot. I think Golden State gives him that as that kind of wing. He fits into their system. Nick Richards, I know they've been linked to Al Horford as well. They lost Kevon Looney. They need some help in the front court. And adding either Nick Richards or maybe even Oso Ighodaro, like you mentioned as well, as a potential piece, as I think he would be kind of the Patrick Baldwin Jr. that they struck out on a couple years ago into blossoming to being that big for them. I think that it helps them a lot because they save a lot of money in doing that deal, right? If they're giving up Jonathan Kuminga for $22.5 million and they're taking on Grayson and Nick Richards, it is equal, I believe, value. But if they take on Oso and Nick Richards, they're saving money, which gives them more flexibility for Melton, Horford, other players as well, which I think allows them to be a little bit better. The Suns, I don't know off my math calculations because they would be selling Grayson Allen for another second-round pick and stuff. I don't necessarily know where they would be, but the one benefit of that is they'd be getting Jonathan Kuminga for technically 3 contracts, freeing up 2 roster spots and still having the non-tax mid-level exception to go out there in free agency and bring one of those guys in, or even give the guarantee to Jordan Goodwin and Jared Butler as those 2 contracts if they do like both of them going into training camp, maybe even going into more training camp contracts and evaluating more. It just brings out the more possibilities to just evaluate people that are going to fit this identity. And I don't think Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, like Nick Richards, really kind of go into that for the Suns going into this season.
Like how I mentioned before, it goes from it's a little risky. You're sending out Oso. I actually think Oso Ighodaro and Royce O'Neal, I'm not even sure the money works there. I'm sure it doesn't. But Oso Ighodaro and Royce O'Neal, in fact, I'm like 100% sure it doesn't. But either way, those 2 guys would fit like really seamlessly with the Golden State Warriors. 2 high IQ guys. And I keep mentioning on the show, Oso Ighodaro is a better passer than Kevon Looney. But he kind of reminds me of Kevon Looney, a smaller big who I think at his best can, get to the rim at will, but do what Kevon Looney did best. A smaller big who just got offensive rebound after offensive rebound. So I get why the Warriors would want Royce O'Neal, and I get why they would want Oso Ighodaro. Nick Richards to me doesn't really fit what they do, and Royce O'Neal as well. It's just not enough, I feel like, to move on from Kuminga. However, Brett Siegel kind of poured cold water all over this about an hour ago. So this was at 5:15 p.m. on July 30th. In conversations tonight with multiple sources close to the situation, nothing has changed regarding the Warriors' stance on what the Suns have to offer for Kuminga. They don't want long-term contracts, nor hold much interest in Nick Richards. No offer involving 4 seconds. First off, if that's true, and I do think Brett Siegel's good at his job, he's not, Evan Sidery just news aggregating and telling everyone that Ryan Dunn is on the table. That feels right? And of all the reporting that we've heard, where would you say we're at now? Like, do you think the Suns? I guess I'd frame it like this: who do you believe? Is there a world? Where does Mark Spears get that from? Is he just making up stuff out of thin air? Someone told him that. So I do think everyone. This is kind of the way I like to piece it together. I think everyone is telling a bit of the truth. And everyone is lying a little bit because everyone's posturing. Everyone's trying to keep their side. Everyone's trying to prove that they're right. What do you make of all the reporting? And what do you think's the closest to be true? Because I'll let you know who I think is right in all of this.
I think the person that's the most wrong is the person who informed Mark Spears that the Suns had 4 second-round picks, because they only had to do a quick Google search and find out that on Fanspo it was not possible. And I love that Gambo kind of gave that clap back too. I did my own. It's just a simple Google search. I would side with Brett Siegel on this. He's been tapped in with the Warriors for a lot of the stuff, and he, like you mentioned, he's maintained this situation with Jonathan Kuminga dating back to not even when the Suns were involved, but when the Kings were earlier involved, when the Wizards were early involved, when the Bulls were early involved. He's been on tap with this and has been stating multiple times that the most likely that Warriors and Kuminga will kind of continue this venture because the value that they have for Jonathan Kuminga just isn't out there. And will he rise to that value because they don't play him? I don't necessarily know. I think they have to kind of give him some more leeway in that rotation to get the value that they want. And that might, poison them in the back going into next offseason if he leaves for nothing. I would personally side with Siegel here, though. I think that makes sense for the Warriors not to want Grayson Allen because they have Buddy Hield who makes similar and is on a expiring contract. And I think adding Grayson necessarily makes you have to move Buddy, which then just makes another trade have to happen, which is a little bit more complex for them. Royce O'Neal would make sense. I think that their major hangup, though, is one of the rookies. If they can't get done, if they can't get Oso Ighodaro, they're not going to want to do it. And that's where I think the 4 second-round picks kind of came into play, was maybe that would be complimentary of one of those guys in value. But I don't think that the Suns even have enough picks to get there, to get the second-round picks to do it. So I don't think they'll be able to find that value, because if they could have, they would have already, I think, moved Grayson and flipped him for another player or contract and done this deal already.
I'm happy that you continue to preface that that the Suns don't have 4 second-round picks. Our listeners are very smart. They will tell you immediately, hey, buddy, we haven't got 4 second-round picks. You even watch the teams. So you got to be very clear with our listeners here. Are very smart everydayers. I love it. They keep me on my toes. Let's kind of take this into the let's go to the final segment here. And let's talk about if Kuminga to Phoenix has really any legs at this point, because you and I are both kind of the belief Siegel's probably right, but is it completely dead? I'm not so sure that's the case. Let's talk about that next. All right, let's close it out, Bruce. I lean towards this, man. And I think you're here. I think Jonathan Kuminga gets traded. I think he has to get traded. So when I'll say this first, and then I'll kind of get to my son's part of it. There's no way he signs the qualifying offer, and there's no way he signs a 2-year, $45 million deal. If I'm Kuminga, I'm doing everything I can to get out of Golden State land, and here's the reason for it. It's been 4 years. They still haven't paid him. They still haven't played him. They have no interest in playing him. In high leverage games, Steve Kerr doesn't trust him. You're telling me that in April, when there's a do or die game, they're fighting for the 5th seed or the 4th seed in the Western Conference, or fighting to be in the play-in, Steve Kerr is going to play Jonathan Kuminga, who he does not trust, because he has a handshake hush-hush agreement that he's going to play him and give him a starting role. I don't buy that, man. And so what I think is going to happen is the Kings are going to end up with Jonathan Kuminga, because I just think they're going to be willing to give up more. But what I also think is this. I would put it at like a 45% chance the Suns get Kuminga. I would lean Kings are the favorite. I just don't think that there's a chance the Warriors can mend that relationship. It's been 4 years. They showed you what they thought of you. And if you're Kuminga, yes, you can take the $45 million a year over 2 years. But if they don't play you, or it's the same thing over the next 2 years, and people don't see you significantly improve or only moderately improve, you're never going to get that money back. You're not going to get the $90 million a year down the road. He might end up making $110 million in his NBA career because NBA money is stupid. But for the Suns, but for Kuminga, if he gets one of these deals with the Kings or the Suns, which sounds like $90 million over 4 years, he can end up making $200 million in his NBA career. Like, money talks, man. If I'm Kuminga, I'm doing everything I can to get out of the Warriors. And I do think he favors Phoenix. And I think that's what's kind of making it tough, because if there's only one buyer and Kuminga's actively saying, I'm not really all that interested in the Kings, are the Kings really going to give up a first-round pick? I don't know. Carter and someone else to make it happen? They could and bring him in. But if he doesn't want to be there, that's kind of where I go. The relationship with the Warriors is not great. With the Kings, I'm not so sure how much he wants to be there. And if he wants Phoenix, they're the only suitor. And if that's the case, why bid against yourself? So, although at the end of the day, I do think ultimately the Kings win this thing, I do think the Suns have a legitimate shot, man, and getting him for what they want him for, because there's just no market for him. And the Warriors don't want him. They keep saying they don't want him. And now they're saying, we're going to mend the relationship. You know what that tells me? You're not getting the offers on the table you thought you were going to get. I filibustered there. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with you. I think that the Suns still should be in this conversation. I think still will remain in this conversation, dating back to even at last year's trade deadline when they were interested in Jonathan Kuminga when trying to do that Durant swap. They're still going to continue to be interested in Jonathan Kuminga, I think, throughout this entire process and still engaging with them. Like you mentioned, I do think that the Kings most likely are the team to land him. But even when you look at that, the Warriors and Kings have a little bit of a rivalry, being obviously in the same division, but, kind of being the two teams that are in California that aren't LA and going back to the playoffs the past couple of seasons. Who knows if they really want to go there? I don't really see the fit there either. Like the Kings are a mess in themselves. Anyways, they're in the Chicago Bulls. People critique the Suns. Look at those front offices and see what they're doing. But anyways, with Jonathan Kuminga, I do think that if the tides do come to where the Warriors feel like they don't want to lose him for anything, they would accept a Grayson Allen. They would accept, that Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards type of package just to get at least something in return. They don't want to lose him for everything. But I do think the one caveat to the Warriors signing is with him going on the qualifying offer. I think he can become an unrestricted free agent going into the next season. He might want to just bank on himself and kind of just go with that. But obviously, like we mentioned here, the trials and tribulations of that is obviously if Steve Kerr's not going to play you, isn't going to give you that playing time in game 4 of the playoffs, in game 5 of the playoffs where you're necessarily needed. Maybe if it's not crunch time, but throughout the contest in general, it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of showcase to a Brooklyn Nets or Detroit Pistons, another team, or potentially out there Kings or Suns down the line that you can make that impact. I do think, though, 100%, the Suns are his preferred destination.
I think if we were ranking it, I would say Kings, Suns, 2-year, $45 million with the Warriors. There's no way he signs that qualifying offer, man. The 2 years, $45 million, you just got to kind of take it at that point. But that qualifying offer, and that's exactly what it is. You take this, I think it's $6.8 million for the qualifying offer, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. You take that offer, and then next season you play on it, you bet on yourself. The Warriors have already showed you they're not going to play you. They don't believe in you in crunch time. So I don't think you can go in betting on yourself. It's not like a DeAndre Ayton situation where he was a restricted free agent. Obviously, the Suns extended the qualifying offer. If DeAndre felt like, because he got if I'm not mistaken, DeAndre Ayton got the regular 4-year, $120 million max, not the rookie max extension with escalators, which goes up every year, percentage of cap, for all you capologists out there. He could have signed the qualifying offer and the next year, tried to get a bigger deal, and it would have made more sense. It wouldn't have made sense. But in this instance, it would have made sense that he knew the Suns were going to play him. If you're Kuminga, what he played in 3 games? I think he played in like 4 games in the playoffs, but he played like not a lot of minutes in any of the games because they didn't trust him. So, and with the question marks, man, someone's going to have to tell the Warriors, I think they're going to have to take their lumps here. I just don't know if you're the Kings, man. If you give up Carter, a first-round pick, and your offer blows the Suns out of the water, that you would want a guy who wants you, but wants you more for your money. He's a gold-digging player in this instance. So I think that's where I would land, man.
I have one question for you. Do you think there's a surprise team that could potentially come out of this Wardenworks? Like Chicago Bulls was mentioned a while ago. Do you think potentially a team like that could kind of sprout out of nowhere, specifically if we got closer and closer, like if we got to like middle of August and he still hasn't signed yet?
Probably, but I think they're in the same business as the Kings. It's like, if you don't really want us, why do we want you? Now the Bulls, like, are you asking me like if a legitimate sleeper team is out there? Sure. But I'm going to act as if they're a competent organization, not like the Celtics, not like the Hornets, who are an awful organization, but like just competent, like the bare minimum. Is there a really dumb organization out there that could do something stupid? The Hornets, the Bulls, those type of organizations that would just, give up DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and who was the other guy? And get no first round picks back in return. Like, yeah, there's a dumb organization that can do that, but I think it's a 2-team race. I can't see him going back to the Warriors, man. I just think that is that's just a disaster waiting to happen. And like, if you're the Warriors, you're still trying to win this year. The value for Kuminga isn't what you thought it was. Take your lumps, whether it's with the Kings, whether it's with the Suns, move on, because you got bigger fish to fry with Steph Curry this year. So that's where I would land on that, man. You got anything else?
Last thing I'll just say is agreeing with you on that last part. They could eventually just flip Grayson, Royce, or whatever they get, Devin Carter from the Kings later down the line. So I agree with you. I think if you're the Warriors, regardless of the situation, don't take it for nothing. Be a little bit of a smart front office and at least take a deal.
Yeah, be like the Suns. Be a competent, smart franchise that doesn't do anything wrong, doesn't make hasty decisions, doesn't hire their fraternity brother as the general manager, all that good stuff. Thanks. Sorry, every time I call Brian Gregory a fraternity brother, I get someone in the comment section saying Matt Espy and Brian Gregory didn't even go to college. Like, yeah, buddy, that's just a joke. It's just a joke. Thanks for making Locked On Suns a part of your daily routine. Check us out on all social media platforms. Myself, Bruce Veliz, and the show Locked On Phoenix Suns. For those of you that don't know, we are in our slow time, if that makes sense. We're doing 3 shows a week for the show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So with that being the case, on YouTube, it'll be up Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night. So you'll be seeing this on Thursday night, or if you're audio listener, Friday morning, Wednesday, Monday morning. So 3 shows a week. It was nice to have John on earlier the week, Bruce today. So for myself, Bruce, everyone watching Locked On Phoenix Suns, the millions of listeners, I'll talk to you guys on Monday.